HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another episode of Regroup Phase. Lots of previews coming by way of various different sources, FFG Socials, the FFG livestream, and then all the lovely creators that were gifted previews for this set. I'm going to do things a little bit differently. In the past, I have done previews in order in which they appeared for the most part. I am not going to do that this time. I'm going to batch them in terms of relevancy to each individual thing that makes sense. So we're going to start off with a bunch of previews I'm actually relatively excited for, some combo pieces that I think are going to be really fun. Then we're going to go directly into the creator previews, and then because some of the other cards that have been previewed as a result of other sources have not been as exciting, we'll just speed through those as quickly as we can because everybody knows what a good card looks like. Everybody knows what a bad card looks like. We'll try to get those done as quickly as possible because they're kind of just there. Y'all know who I'm a fan of. She's back up here. Let's get started with previews associated with Spectres. We got a lot of Spectre stuff coming up, so we're going to start with the first one that is just heroism. We have here Sabine's masterpiece, crazy colorful. 3-cost heroism space unit, 3 power, 3 health, rebel vehicle fighter Spectre. Fantastic. On attack, if you control a blue unit, heal 2 damage from a base. If you control a green unit, give an experience token to a unit. If you control a red unit, deal 1 damage to a unit or a base. If you control a yellow unit, exhaust or ready a resource. This is a rare, number 250 out of 262 in JTL. This is a fantastic card. 3-cost, 3/3 in space is a little tough because we do know that a lot of 3-cost units can have 3 power and 4 health, either with no ability or some ability or a detrimental ability, but also a beneficial ability. Given that on the attack, you can actually give this an experience token itself so long as you have at least 1 green unit on the board. There is some ways to be able to keep this on the board. You can ECL this in, clear out an opponent's ship, and as long as you have a green, boom, you're good and ready to go. There are a lot of cheap units that Rebel decks and Spectre decks can use to be able to get this stuff off the board. Sabine at 2, we have a new Pilot at 2, we have Chopper at 1, and then Battlefield Marine at 2, Ezra even at 3 for all the different colors that are available to you. You can get this online to be able to activate all of its abilities within 3 to 4 rounds of being able to start the game, so long as you have your game plan set and ready to go. I think this is a great card. The flavor on this is absolutely incredible. Sabine being the painter, you being able to do stuff based upon the different colors of things you have on the board. The flavor on this is absolutely fantastic. This is going to be a 3 of in basically every Spectre deck. This is kind of one of the things that Spectres needed. We had that curve of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but now that we have more Spectre units coming in various different costs, there are different options available to you. You'll still put more rebels in there. You're still starting off as a green deck, but I think double green Hera might actually have some viability given some of the other things we're going to be seeing later, and also this, because you do have access to all those different colors, given that Spectres are different colors. Lots of fun stuff here. Because this is a ship, it's going to be a prestige card in the Carbonite packs, so me having to chase down the 3 hyperspaces but also 3 prestiges. I'm not going to be running down the serialized cards, too expensive for me, but this and 2 other ships that we're seeing for Spectres, I'm going to be very happy, not happy to chase down, but I'm going to chase them down, and it's going to be pretty fun. And knowing that we are likely not going to see a Hera leader, that means my current Hera showcase still has the value for this deck. So our first Spectre puts us on a stage of there's a lot of interesting tools available. Let's see what's next. Next up from FFG Socials, we have our first Spectre Pilot. It's a pilot we expected to see. A lot of people thought she was going to be a leader. She is not a leader. She's just a regular pilot. But we have Hera Syndulla, we've lost enough. 2-cost Vigilance Heroism ground unit, 2 power, 3 health, restore 1. That's pretty decent. Basically makes her a ground arc 170. For piloting and the same cost, attached unit gains restore 1, plus 2 power, plus 3 health. Name is obviously Hera Syndulla. Rebel, Twilight, Spectre, and Pilot traits. This is an uncommon number 45 out of 262 in JTL. So Hera gives all of your ships that you want to pilot an opportunity to gain +2, +3, which are her base stats, and restore. So if you got an X-Wing, she jumps into it. You got a Ghost, she jumps into it. You got that Sabine's masterpiece, she can jump into it and do some cool stuff. She will not count as a unit of a color that you control, specifically blue, while she's piloting, but if she is on the ground as her 2/3 with restore 1, she can set you up to be able to do that in the late game, or the mid game even. I think this is a very good pilot. There's also a combo coming that'll be at the end of this string of cards that is very interesting and probably very dangerous for people to deal with. Anybody outside of control, it's going to be a very dangerous thing to be able to deal with. So I like this card a lot. I think it's good. We got some great art here, much like we had great art in the last card. A low-cost pilot was not what I was expecting in terms of what they can do, especially considering the fact I think Spectres need a finisher. But this is also a part of the deck that I think the deck suffers from a little bit, where you're stuck into green so often you don't have as much stuff outside of your color to be able to deal with. And Hera Syndulla, along with the Sabine's Masterpiece we just got earlier, they really help push that middle of the curve, being able to push through on your turns 2, 3, and 4 to be able to get stuff done. It's fantastic. I like it. She here, she ready to blow you up. Next up, we have a preview from the FFG live stream. Some of these are going to be separate, but most of them are going to be towards the end of the stream because they did do a batch of previews, and a lot of them are kind of just generic common draft fillers. But for Spectres, we have Phantom 2 modified to dock. This is a 3-cost Vigilance Heroism space unit, 3 power, 3 health, Rebel Vehicle Transport, and Spectre, Grit. As an action and 1 resource, if this card is a unit, attach it as an upgrade to the Ghost. It is no longer a unit. Defeat all upgrades on it and remove all damage from it. The attached unit gets +3/+3 and gains Grit. This is a rare, number 50 out of 262 in JTL. We already know what the Ghost does right off the bat, as it's 6 cost with its, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's a 6 cost 5/5 that has shielded and gives shields to Spectres. If you have the Phantom on the board, you can attach it to the Ghost, and it makes that specific Ghost an 8/8 with Grit, which is pretty good. Still vulnerable to removal of just having a unit being defeated right off the bat, but it does have higher health. It's also vulnerable to just being sent back to your hand, as everything is, right? That's kind of just the thing that we have to deal with. There's a lot of removal in this game. We have to just try to circumnavigate that as best as possible. However, the Phantom itself, Phantom 2, being a separate space unit, means that you can start with this on the board as your space unit on your 3 to be able to do some different things. And if it takes a couple pieces of damage, you can use that Grit to push more damage onto your other opponent's units or your opponent's base. And then eventually you can use that 1 resource to throw this over to the Ghost and do some cool stuff. You can also throw a pilot onto this to temporarily allow it to be able to do some stuff while it's there. The only issue I have with this card is that I wish the pilot that was attached to the Phantom 2 would move over to the Ghost. I think that would be a really cool combo piece, since you've already spent the resources to pilot the Phantom 2 itself, and then you're spending the resource to move that over. But as it stands right now, it's just the Phantom, so you got to be careful of what types of pilots you're putting onto the Phantom. Or if you're just going, I have the Ghost on the board already, 3 for the Phantom, 1 to put the Phantom over, Grit attack. Hopefully you can win with that. Lots of interesting stuff. But again, it is that 3-cost, middle of the curve unit that's going to be able to allow you to do a couple of different things. It's a Rebel, so it gets experience tokens from Wing Leader and the bonuses from anything else that says Rebel. It's a Spectre, so you ignore its aspect cost when you play a Hera deck. This is also just a decent blue card because it is a 3/3 and 3 with Grit. So lots of fun stuff, very thematic for what it's supposed to do. We'll see how viable it is in Hera Spectre decks. So we're adding up middle cost units. What the Spectres really need is a strong finisher that synergizes what Spectres want to do, which is putting off aspect units on the board, being able to use their powerful effects in a deck that would not be able to utilize them otherwise, and try to do something that really pushes what you're already doing forward, especially with some of the cards we've already seen. So we have the Ghost, Heart of the Family. 5-cost Vigilance Heroism space unit, 5 power, 6 health, Rebel Vehicle Transport Spectre. Each other friendly Spectre unit gains this unit's keywords, and while this unit is upgraded, it gains Sentinel. This is a legendary, number 53 out of 262 in JTL. Great art. It's a legendary, so it's going to be one that Spectre players are going to be chasing, myself as well. It's not really that useful outside of Spectre decks, so it might not necessarily be as high valued as a legendary. So sneak those in early and often as you can with that. Hyperspace versions of these are going to be a little difficult to chase. Prestige variant versions of these are also going to be a little difficult to chase. This is as close to a finisher as we're probably going to get for a Spectre deck. The combo potential here is absolutely incredible. If you're following me on social media, you've already seen what I've talked about it. Being able to attach the Phantom and a pilot, basically Hera, to this means that you're going to have a 10-12 Ghost in space that has Grit, Sentinel, and Restore 1, which means all of your Spectre units are also going to have Grit, Sentinel, and Restore 1. Your opponent is not going to be able to attack your base anytime soon unless they just clear the Ghost off the board, which unfortunately it doesn't have any type of protection from removal or being bounced back to hand, so you do have to worry about stuff like that. but it is a chunky unit in space that can pile up some investments that you've made earlier in the game, plus an investment you make on the turn that you do this, and the fact that you can give it an experience token with Hera's Leader unit ability if she's still on the board, and you could potentially give this a shield if you play the other ghost on the turn after this comes out, round after this comes out. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's associated with this card. Like I said, it's as close to a finisher as you're going to be able to get, but it does rely on the conventional method of playing the game, which is just pushing damage, as opposed to being a above rate card that does a lot of good things that is also protected. Theoretically, if you throw a Chewy on it, you're not going to get the restore, but you are going to protect it from some of the more common methods of removal. But that also means that you need 8 resources total in order to be able to do stuff like that. So you got to figure out exactly what you're going to do with a card like this. But given that it is a blue card, it's going to add more things for Sabine's Masterpiece. It's not going to be played in decks that are outside of the Spectre thing, because this doesn't really do anything for rebels. It doesn't really do anything for vehicles. It doesn't really do anything for transports as much. Its most relevant trait is that Spectre trait, and that's going to be important, but it does mesh with rebel strategies. So Hera at least has something that resembles a finisher, and this should be, at bare minimum, very fun to play. Next up, we have 2 cards from Neverboard Gaming. Link in the description below to that YouTube video. Let's check out this first one. We have here Guerrilla Soldier, 3-cost Cunning ground unit, 2 power, 3 health, Fringe Twilight Trooper. When played, deal 3 indirect damage to a player. If a base was damaged this way, ready this unit. This is common number 218 out of 262 in JTL. So this is probably just Ryloth Defenders. It does have the Twilight trait, so it has some synergy there if Twi'leks ever actually matter in this game. It's basically yellow indirect damage. You play, you deal 3, which is actually quite good for 3 cost, also getting a 2/3 on the board. So there is some interesting stuff. And if your opponent either chooses to or is forced to throw the damage onto the base, then you get to ready this unit and you get to attack. And then it does its thing. Indirect damage support in yellow. It seems like yellow and red are going to be the 2 indirect damage colors. I'm hoping to see some more red indirect damage interaction, especially given that the Devastator looks really cool. And I want to play indirect damage in red. But Guerrilla Soldier is it's a great draft and sealed staple. It'll probably see some play in indirect damage decks in Twin Suns. And honestly, again, 3 cost, 3 indirect damage, maybe ready a 2/3. That's not anything to scoff at. The second preview is an absolute incredible event. We have here Stay on Target. This is a 2-cost aggression tactic event. Attack with a vehicle unit. For this attack, it gains +2/+0 and gains when this unit deals damage to a base, draw a card. This is an uncommon number 177 out of 262 in JTL. Stay on target. Stay on target. This is basically a combination of Heroic Sacrifice and Surprise Strike, but in red and without the downside of losing your unit, as long as you attack the base, right? I mean, you're not going to lose the unit regardless, but you're going to draw the card as a result of attacking the base. This is a great card. It's going to see a lot of play in vehicle decks. It's going to see a lot of play in red vehicle decks. It's going to see some play in red-green vehicle decks. I think this is probably going to replace any other attacks matter card that's not in yellow, because yellow has so many other good attacks matters cards. Shoot first, swoop down, surprise strike, breaking in, things like that. But for red, being able to do this with a vehicle, giving it +2/+0, and getting to draw a card if it attacks a base, throw this on something with Saboteur and bada boom, you get an extra card, it refills itself, and you just did 2 extra damage on top of whatever damage your vehicle normally does. This is a great, great card. Next up, we have 2 previews by way of rolling dice and taking names. Link to their video in the description below. As always, we have No Glory Only Results. 5-cost Vigilance Villainy Tactic Event. Take control of a non-leader unit, then defeat it. This is a rare number 43 out of 262 in JTL. I'm going to start with the art. We've seen this art before. This is incredible art. Thrawn blows up a Nebulon B frigate with the Chimera, while the other 2 Star Destroyers chill in the back doing Star Destroyer stuff, right? This is what we like to see in art. In terms of cards, hey, look, it's another blue villain control card. Yay! This at least does something interesting as opposed to just be, I mean, it's still just a do a thing and defeat a unit that's on your opponent's side of the board, but it does also give you the direct benefit of any when defeated effects that occur on that card, and it makes it so your opponent can't do stuff, or if it has protection from stuff like that, like the Lurking TIE Phantom, then you get to be able to not deal with that because you just go, cool, I'm going to take control of your unit, and now because it's on my side of the board, your effects are protected from it, but I'm going to defeat it anyway. Why you would spend 5 on a Lurking TIE Phantom unless it's juiced up to the gills with Tarkin, I don't know, but it's an option that's available there. If you're going to lose the game, if you don't do it, then you do it, right? That's how these things work. We did not need another removal card. No other flavor. We don't need any other flavors of removal card. I'm saying it right now. I'm saying it right now. We do not need any more removal cards. We don't. With that being said, this is actually kind of neat. It's a better Vanquish for Villainy because, of course, Villainy gets the better control cards. And it does at least allow Thrawn himself to get the extra bonuses based upon using your opponent's when defeated effects because, as of the rules of the game, because it was on your side of the board when it was defeated as opposed to the owner of the card, because that was a decision that was made in set 1, you get to use that ability for the when defeated, and if your Thrawn is active, then you get to use it twice. Value Town. Next up, we have the ship that they are expecting Rio Durant to pilot, because it's what he did in Solo: A Star Wars Story. We have here Stolen AT Hauler. This is a 3-cost Cunning space unit, 4 power, 5 health. Very good stats for a 3. Underworld vehicle transport, so you get the transport bonus with Saboteur and the +1 with Rio. When defeated, choose an opponent. For this phase, they may play this unit from its owner's discard pile for free. This is a legendary number 221 out of 262 in JTL. The top half of the card is all upside. The bottom half of the card is all downside. This is a legendary. I think that's a little suspect, but it's okay. I'm not going to try to target the quality of legendaries, but I've said what I've said. Stick Rio on this, you have a pretty decent ship, especially on 3. So you could potentially play this on 3, hope your opponent doesn't defeat it. Sorry, you can play it on 4, hope your opponent doesn't defeat it. Then on 5, you flip your Rio and you do your stuff, yada yada. It's basically a 3-cost 4/5 that has a huge downside because your opponent can just play this for free. But then if you defeat it, you get to play it for free because your opponent controls the when defeated effect, which means you get to play it for free. The one counter to this is making it so that this has been defeated after your opponent has already taken the initiative for the turn, which means they can't do anything. There is a way to get around it, but it's such a niche get around it that it's probably not going to happen all that often. 3-cost 4/5. If you bounce it back to your hand with McClunky, you bypass the when defeated effect, although you just spent 4 resources to do that. We'll see if somebody comes up with something interesting with this. They certainly didn't for Evazan. Next up, we have our first of 2 leaders this week. So we have half the remaining leaders that we need. Next week, we'll have all the leaders and everything will be set. We've got a red hero leader. We are looking at Poe Dameron. I can fly anything. Red heroism, resistance pilot traits, action for 1 resource, and exhausting the leader. Flip this leader and attach him as an upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. As an epic action, if you control 5 or more resources, you deploy this leader as a unit. So as a unit, it's a 4/6. As an upgrade, it's +2/+1. This is a rare number 13 out of 262 in JTL. Unit side, a blank 4/6. Upgrade side, it's a +2/+1, but as an action for 1 resource, you can attach this to a friendly vehicle without a pilot on it, and you can only use this ability once each round. Poe Dameron, as previewed, is our first leader that has the ability to be out on the field in some form or fashion more than once per game. That's pretty big. The fact that you can flip Poe on demand as a 1-cost +2/+1 pilot that can also potentially jump over to another ship, another vehicle, and attack in that same round, that's actually pretty good value. You throw your ship down. If you have 2 ready ships, you can Poe onto 1 ship, attack with that ship, Poe onto the next ship, attack with that ship, vehicle, whatever the case may be. You understand what I'm saying. That's pretty interesting. But the fact that this flip does not cost you your epic action and it does not cost you to deploy, meaning that you can get a 4/6 on the board, and when he goes back on the next round, you can still throw him as a pilot on something, that's actually quite good. There's some synergy available with this. We're going to see 2 cards here in a minute that synergize very well with this card, one of which I think is a disaster of design, but we are here and this is what we're doing. But Poe as a leader is a lot different than what I was expecting. I was definitely expecting someone that would probably have the best pilot stats since he's one of the better pilots in Star Wars, but the creativity of the design means that they tried something. It may or may not work, but at least it is interesting enough to get people to do something different with their decks, and I think that is to be lauded in terms of the design space for the game. Next up, we have 2 previews courtesy of Thorrk over on YouTube. Link in the description below. We have a very good space unit and an absolutely busted event with one specific leader. Let's check out the unit first. We have here Black 1, straight at them. 2 cost, aggression, heroism, space unit, 2 power, 3 health, resistance, vehicle, and fighter traits. While this unit is upgraded, it gets +1/+0 on attack. If you control Poe Dameron as a unit, upgrade, or leader, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. This is a rare number 147 out of 262 in JTL. It's Poe's ship. It does Poe things. It's quite good with Poe on it. It's all upside, actually no downside, and it's a 2 cost. That's really good. This sets the tempo for the game and allows you to do some really interesting stuff unless you're going up against Outlaw Corona in a Piet deck. The fact that 1 card can neutralize an entire deck is actually depressing. But if you watch the stream, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't watch the stream, go watch the FFG stream. Anyway, throwing Poe onto Black 1 basically gives you a 3 total cost, 5/4, that on attack deals a damage to a unit. That's quite good, especially for 2 cost on 1 round, 1 cost on another round. And if you can keep this guy alive, you can just keep doing that over and over. And if you can keep 2 vehicles alive, you can have Poe jump back and forth for each of them to do some really cool stuff. I think this is a very, very, very good card and is absolutely going to be the basis of every Poe deck because it does really do some interesting stuff. We do have another Poe unit we'll talk about after these previews. We also have the previous Poe unit, so there's a lot of upside on being able to run multiple Poes in your deck that is also running this specific Black 1. I like it a lot. I think it's quite good. We'll have to see how it works moving forward in Poe decks. Next, we have a busted in half event. We have here Eject. This is a 2 cost command gambit event. Detach a pilot upgrade, move it to the ground arena as a unit, and exhaust it. Draw a card. This is a rare, number 126 out of 262 in JTL. If you're going to lose your ship, you eject, move your pilot to the ground, exhaust it so that it can't do anything that round. It's basically effectively the same as playing it, but not actually playing it. And then you get to draw a card. So it refills itself for 2 resources and allows you to keep at least one of your pieces of the board alive. That is very good for what we want pilots to be able to do. However, in combination with Poe Dameron, if you get the opportunity to be able to do this, you can have Poe Dameron as a 4/6 ground leader unit up to 4 times in a game, because this does not activate your epic action, and it means that your leader unit that it was an upgrade that has now become a unit is in play and can do that. Actually, any of the pilots can do this potentially. If you're going to lose your ship, your leader unit is going to be better for you than you would otherwise, you can throw eject onto that, be able to drop it to the ground, and still have that unit be able to do stuff in the next round. And again, because of the fact that Poe can do this multiple times as a 4/6, I understand when I talk about 5 cost 4/6s not being great, but you can do this as early as round 2 with Poe. And that is absolutely bonkers. You wouldn't be able to use Poe as an attacker in that round on the ground, but you can set him up to be able to do some nasty stuff in the next phase and then just jump right back into his ship once he gets defeated the following round. This card is insane for one deck, which I guess I am thankful that is countered by 1 card, but I don't understand it. I don't understand the thought process around some of these things. But Eject is here for anything that is not a leader pilot upgrade. This card is good. For the leader pilot upgrades, this card is busted. Another card from the FFG live stream. Unfortunately, I don't have a great image for this as it has not been provided as of yet, but it does tie into some of the cards we just talked about recently. We have Poe Dameron, one hell of a pilot. 4 cost command heroism ground unit. I'm trying to zoom in. 3 power, 3 health. When played as a unit, create an X-Wing token. You may attach this unit as an upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. Or you could pay 2 green whites for piloting to get a +2/+3 pilot onto one of your vehicles without a pilot. Resistance and pilot traits, I don't know the number. It looks like 103 out of 262 and uncommon. This mixes very well with the Poe Dameron deck. You can put them into play, generate a vehicle, and then attach it to that vehicle or attach it to another vehicle or not attach it at all, which is pretty good. Or you throw the pilot down, pilot cost if you don't need the extra vehicles to be able to do some interesting stuff. So there is a bunch of extra value in playing it as a 4, or some minor value is playing it as a 2. It's a pilot. It's a Poe damage. It triggers off black 1. You theoretically could have black 1, play Poe, attach Poe to the black 1 while also creating an X-Wing token, having that token for the next round, and attacking with that black 1 for even more power than you would have had otherwise, or at least health. And that's, you know, that's one hell of a pilot. Next up, 2 previews by way of Don't Be Bored. Link in the description below to these cards here in that video. First up, we have Nebula Ignition, 9-cost Vigilance Disaster event. Defeat each unit that isn't upgraded. This is a legendary number 80 out of 262 in JTL. This depicts some Star Destroyers being destroyed by a nebula while the Ghost and 2 Y-Wings escape. I actually don't remember which episode this is from, but this is great art. This is a board wipe for units that aren't upgraded. So if your opponent's able to manage your upgraded units, you can go, you know what? I'm just gonna kill everything anyway. But if you have a bunch of stuff that remains on the board that has upgrades on it, you then get to Nebula Ignition to be able to clear everything that is not those units. 9 cost is expensive. It is a legendary. Super Laser Blast was also a legendary. It's not villainy, so any blue deck can use it. I don't know that this is going to see a bunch of play. I think this actually is a pretty significant board breaker in Twin Suns if you can get to 9 before someone gets defeated and then someone wins the game. But there's some interesting stuff that could work with this card. I like it just for the art alone, and you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. It's just really cool art. Next up, this card's cool. Let's get right onto it. This is Cham Syndulla, 4-cost aggression ground unit. Cham Syndulla rallying Ryloth, 5 power, 4 health, Rebel, and Twi'lek, so Rebel stuff, that's pretty cool. When played, if an opponent controls more resources than you may put the top card of your deck into play as a resource. This is an uncommon, number 164 out of 262 in JTL. Hera's daddy is here. Cham blows stuff up. He's not as bad as Saw Gerrera when it comes to like the dastardly deeds, but he is very protective of his family and his planet and all this other stuff and wants to defeat the Empire. Cool character, cool card, 4-cost, 5/4. Not uncommon cost, I think. I think a lot of double single aspect cards have this ratio, but we have a couple of other cards in the set that now get this ratio here. And if your opponent's been ramping, now you get to ramp. That's pretty good. Our second leader for the week is very tricksy, is a very complex design. Let's get right to it. We have Admiral Trench, Cunning, Villainy, Separatist Official Leader. As an action, you can exhaust this leader to discard a card that costs 3 or more from your hand. If you do, draw a card. As an action, you can pay 3 and exhaust this leader. If you control 6 or more resources, you deploy this leader into a 4/5. This is a rare, number 14 out of 262 in JTL. Flipping over to the other side, Trench's unit side is a 6 cost. You have to control 6 resources, but it's also considered 6 cost. 4/5 Separatist Official. When deployed, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Your opponent discards 2 of them. You draw 1 of the remaining cards and then discard the other. Ryback, what's the epic action? Well, see, that's the fun part. Admiral Trench does not have an epic action. So this is truly the first leader that can deploy multiple times a game. Upside, you have an infinitely recurrable source of a 4/5 that can attack the round it comes into play and can only do it once per round, obviously, because when it's defeated, it just goes back to the other side. You cannot use both actions in the same turn. So there's that. And then, like I said, it does flip into a 4/5, which can attack the round it comes up. The downside is it costs you 3 resources to do that every turn, every round you want to do it, which is not incredible. And then it's when deployed also basically mills 4 cards off the top of your deck. Your opponent gets to choose the 2 best cards out of the 4 and gets rid of them for you. And then you choose the 3rd best card in that grip to keep to your hand, and the 4th best card goes to your discard pile. So in essence, Admiral Trench says, discard 4 cards off the top of your deck. Your opponent chooses which one you get to keep. I don't like this leader. I really don't. I appreciate the funkiness of the design and infinitely deployable leader, but the downsides are so bad. A 4/5 on 6, worthless, absolutely worthless. A character that continuously discards cards on the top of your deck. If there ever comes a point in time where Afra's discarding cards on the top of her deck ability becomes viable, that also means that Trench gets that same thing because they're in the same color combination. Card advantage, right? But nothing does that just yet. And if we ever get to a point where that becomes viable, then there's probably a design mistake that has occurred somewhere as a result of that. I don't like Trench. I don't think he's very good. I don't think that he's a good separatist leader. I think that it's just too, they tried something, they missed, and we have to suffer as a result of it. It's another binder leader. We have a lot of those. It'll get rotated out in 2 years. Okay. Next up, we have 2 previews coming by way of the Garbage Rollers. Link to their stuff in the description below. Check out the article. I think I linked the article, but they also have a video that they talk about it. Check both of those out. We have here 2 space units, a small one and a big one. Let's start with the small one. We have Swarming Vulture Droid, a 2-cost aspectless space unit, 2 power, 2 health, separatist droid vehicle fighter. A deck can have up to 15 copies of this card. This unit gets +1/+0 for each other friendly swarming vulture droid. This is a common number 256 out of 262 in JTL. I love designs like this. Relentless Rats, Heir Apparent, Brotherhood Knights, your experience with all of those if you play Magic the Gathering. Swarming Vulture Droids, exact same thing. You can throw 15 of these in your deck. You can do whatever you want with them. They are 2/2s. I kind of wish that they gained +1/+1 instead of +1/+0 because the Swarming Vulture Droids are all cleared by a bombing run, or they're all sent back to the hand by a clear the field, or they're all cleared by a Snoke, or they're all cleared by Resolute. Lots of different things clear these. It's funky, it's funny. Your Twin Suns deck can include 15 copies of this out of your 80 cards. That might even actually be an interesting deck. I think the biggest combination you're gonna have is with the new Invisible Hand that allows you to throw these, I believe it was onto the board from the top 8 cards of your deck, and that could be very interesting. They're still infinitely clearable, but they're funky and they're funny, and for a fun swarming deck that has a lot of space units, you could do worse. But you could also do better. Now for the big ship, we have Invincible Naval Adversary. This is a 6-cost Cunning Villainy space unit, big old Separatist capital ship. 6 power, 6 health, Separatist vehicle capital ship. If you control a unique Separatist card, this unit costs 1 less to play. When you deploy a leader, you may return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand. This is a legendary, number 191 out of 262 in JTL. I actually like this card a lot because it says if you control a unique Separatist card. A leader is a card you control, so if you're playing a Separatist leader, this is a 5-cost 6/6. If you can give it exploits, say with Dooku, it can come out even earlier. That's pretty cool. And then when you deploy a leader, which Trench can do this multiple times, that's a benefit to being able to do that with Trench multiple times, plus the Twin Suns decks from set 3. You get to do this effect of returning a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand. So you can pick off a bunch of your opponent's units if they're running small stuff. If they're running tokens, they just go and back to their opponent's hand. So you can get rid of all those TIE Fighters and X-Wings if you really need to. This is a fun and interesting card. It is a fair card. It comes out a little bit earlier if you have a Separatist leader. I think this does go in my Grievous deck, which means I need to chase down 3 copies of this in hyperspace because I do try to have the cool treatments in my Grievous deck. But this also goes really well in Dooku, and this is your key prize card in Trench. Trench is still Trench, Dooku is still Dooku, and Grievous is still Grievous. So does it make them better decks? I don't think so, but it makes them different decks, and sometimes that's all you need. Next up, we have our final rare base from Jump to Lightspeed. It's our Cunning base. It has the current record for most words on a base. We have Nabbit Village, 27 health Cunning rare base. Draw 3 more cards in your starting hand, but you cannot take a mulligan. When the first action phase starts, put 3 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a rare, I believe it's number 29 out of 262 in JTL. It's a yellow base. It's better than Jeddah City for sure. I don't think it's better than Petronaki Arena because getting that extra power on your leader is actually quite impactful. But it does mean that it allows you to see more cards in your opening hand and choose which cards you're going to be able to keep. If you think of it as a put 3 back, draw 3 type thing, but you get to choose the best, that's basically how Nabbit Village works. You don't get a mulligan, but oftentimes, for me at least, mulliganing sometimes makes, more often than not, makes things worse. And that's not great. But you get to look at 9 cards, take 3, put them on the bottom, and then start your game. There is a benefit to this because it means that you get to choose which cards get buried and that you probably won't see for the rest of the game. And then you pick your best 6 from those 9 to be able to start the game, including the 2 resources you're going to put face down. I think this is actually a decent enough base to be run if you don't need that Petronaki Arena, but if you do or you need the 30 health, you're going to run those over this. This at least gives you an option. It's something fun. Better players will probably utilize this significantly more than not as good players, but it still comes up to what those 9 cards you're going to draw are, so there is still some variance with it, and you just got to deal with what comes up. Lastly, we have here cards previewed that are part of the FFG live stream, things that they wanted to show us, vehicles and stuff that were played as part of the decks that were done here. None of these are super impactful, so we're just going to lightning around them as we go. There is one ship here that I really do like, but the rest of this stuff is kind of just things that exist, so we'll go through them very quickly, starting off with Phoenix Squadron A-Wing. Hey, Rebel stuff. 2 cost, Command, Heroism, Space Unit, 3 power, 2 health, Rebel, Vehicle, Fighter, Common, 95, 262, JTL. It's a blank green Rebel ship. It's basically going to be, you're going to play this, or you're going to play Battlefield Marine, depending on what you want to do with your deck or what your opponent doesn't want you to do. It's a good card. Next, we have Resistance X-Wing. This is a 2-cost Heroism Space Unit, 2 power, 2 health, Resistance Vehicle Fighter. While this unit has a pilot on it, it gets +1/+1. This is a common, number 247 out of 262 in JTL. It's not a great Poe target, but it's a decent Poe target because it does allow you to eventually go up to a 5/4 as a result of having this, because this becomes a 3/3 and then +2/+1 from the Poe. It's a decent card. If you're throwing pilots in here, you got that Snap Wexley, you got some other stuff, you can throw this in here, but this is a draft card through and through. Sith Trooper, 3-cost Villainy Ground Unit, 3 power, 3 health, First Order Sith Trooper. On attack, this unit gets +1/+0 for this attack for each damaged unit the defending player controls. Common, 238 out of 262 in JTL. This one's actually a little bit more interesting. I don't know if First Order decks are going to be really wanting this, but decks that are running a lot of indirect damage definitely want this, because this is going to get a lot more power the more damage units your opponent has. So this actually fits perfectly in that Boba Fett deck, because you are incentivized to putting damage on your opponent's units and then trying to clear them out after you do something with the Sith Trooper with indirect damage. Still draft fodder, but I think this might actually see some main deck play. Next up, we have TIE Ambush Squadron, 4-cost Command Villainy Space Unit, 2 power, 3 health, Imperial Vehicle Fighter. This has Ambush, that's pretty good. When played and when defeated, create a TIE Fighter token. This is common, number 87 out of 262 in JTL. I think this fits perfectly in Tarkin, in Vader, and maybe even in Thrawn, because you could use that when defeated multiple times. You ambush into something that has 2 health or less to be able to clear it off the board. Then you create a TIE Fighter token when played. Then you create that TIE Fighter token when defeated. There might be something that gives a stacking bonus to all the different things. So doing when played to get the TIE Fighter token and then ambushing might be relevant. I don't think it will be though. So effectively, you're probably just going to ambush and then boom, boom, create those 2 TIE Fighter tokens, and you got things set up for later phase. Thrawn creates 3. And then lastly, we have TIE Dagger Vanguard. This is a 3-cost Villainy Space Unit, 2 power, 2 health, First Order Sith Vehicle Fighter. When played, you may deal 2 damage to a damaged unit. This is a common, number 239 out of 262 in JTL. Again, indirect damage wants you to have your opponents have their units damaged. TIE Dagger Vanguard comes in and goes, cool, that thing's that's already got damage on it, pew pew. So theoretically, it could take out a unit. We don't know. It just depends on how much health is remaining on the unit. There are some situations where this is going to be really good, some situations where this is going to be really bad. 3 power 2/2 is not good, but the possibility of defeating a unit can be good. Again, draft limited card, but could see play in the First Order deck if the First Order deck is doing a lot of indirect damage, and that is relevant for that deck. And there you have it. All the previews over the week. We've got a lot of cool stuff. We stacked our Spectres up first, then our content creator previews, plus some stuff from the stream, as well as the 2 leaders that were previewed in this set. I know it's pretty harsh on Trench. I'm sure somebody will pop out there and do something interesting with Trench. Whether it'll be good, we're not entirely sure. Poe, I think, has a lot more potential, but given what I saw on the stream, the fact that he's hard countered by a very easy strategy seems like it might be a problem going forward. We'll have to see what happens as it pertains to the cards that continue coming out for the set. I do want to try to get not a deck tech, but probably like another Hera video like I did with my Hera aggression build all the way back in set 1 to kind of see where we can go with what is capable in deck building. And then that might be the deck I'm on for set 4. I still think I want to play a lot of Wedge and I want to play a lot of Captain Phasma, but we still need some more cards for Phasma. I think Wedge is basically done at this point. He's got all the ships he needs. He's got all the pilot he needs. Phasma still needs a lot more First Order support to make her viable, which I do believe is coming. We just have to make sure that it all fits in the deck, that it's the way that it's supposed to. So lots of interesting stuff coming up. Jump to Lightspeed, continuing to moving on as it's supposed to move on into Infamy as the set of all sets. So it does look like it's raising the power above what we saw from set 2 and set 3. We just have to hope it also meshes with what we've seen in in set 1, and stuff ends up being good moving forward. So that's all we have this week. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Remember to like and comment on this video. Let me know what your favorite preview was. Let me know what you think of the Spectre support cards as well as the 2 leaders, Trench and Poe. Subscribe to the Star Wars Unlimited YouTube channel for all of your Star Wars Unlimited needs. I'm making some plans, doing some stuff. I have pre-releases already set and ready to go. I'm going to go 2 on Sunday, the Sunday of the 8th, I believe it is, when pre-release 9th, when pre-releases are available. So should be fun, should be interesting. Jump to Lightspeed moves ever on. We're going to have a huge batch of previews coming here very soon. Like, we're currently only sitting at 131 out of 262, and that includes cards exclusive to the Spotlight decks. So there's a lot of stuff going to be coming out. We'll try to get this out to you as best as possible. We'll probably leave a lot of the draft chaff off and just really go for the creator previews and the ones that are done that are very impactful to the game as a whole. Plus, we still have 2 leaders this week, so that's there. Anyway, that's it. We outie. I will see you in Lightspeed.